So why don't you give us kind of your background? Who are you? How'd you get started in some of this and all that stuff?
Yeah. So I started reading, I don't know, man. It was a while ago. Whenever I started reading, I started writing was essentially some very bad spin-offs of whatever I was reading at the time, which I think is kind of how it goes. But as I moved forward and I started developing stuff that I wanted to like newer stories, I guess. And yeah, long story short, I just kind of like kept working at it over the years, and would like there were sometimes like years when I would just stop. And I don't know, I got into like game design briefly at one point, which was very fun. And I would go like work on that maybe for a while, or I'd just like play Halo for a bunch instead. And then, I always came back to writing. And so a couple of things kind of happened roughly all at once, where I found some like writing groups. So like World Building Magazine was a big one back in, I don't know, 2018, 19, somewhere around there. And I joined them and really began to find a community in writing. We were like a volunteer group who were creating, free articles for people to read about world building and storytelling and stuff like that. It's still going, by the way, today. I'm not personally a part of it anymore. I just don't have the time. But I ran it for a few years, and I was a part of it for 5, I think, roughly. And it was a really good opportunity to not just find a community, but also, talk with people who know way more than me. Like I was no one wanted to do the interviews, but we wanted to have interviews. Mm-hmm. So I became the person who did that very quickly.
Yeah.
And I just kind of like kept pushing the envelope with that. Like I ended up, some of the people that we brought on were we brought on Ed Greenwood was one person who we spoke with, who like created Dungeons and Dragons. We brought in the guy who wrote forgetting his name right now, but he wrote part of like Stargate. I got to interview him. Joe Mazzoli, I think his name is.
Nice.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, just like bringing in a bunch of like outside talent and voices to kind of talk with. That was a big step for me. And then around, the same time I was working on that, I had a big career shift and went into UX UI design, which is the part of like creating a website or an application where I get to tell the developers what it should look like and how it should work, which is super fun. I love it. And that ended up getting me an opportunity to work with Campfire, which is a writing software and now a reading app. Which was like the perfect alignment of interests. And I'm still working with them today. And that experience has kind of brought me back into, I had previously attempted some publishing maybe like 8 years ago at this point. It was an interesting experience, and I'm glad that I did it, but it kind of stopped there for a while. And kind of working with Campfire and being a part of some communities. I also recently joined Fanfictions, which is a book review group. And kind of all of these things have really pushed me to want to get back into writing and publishing again. I'd always been writing, but like more seriously now, like actually trying. And so, yeah, that's kind of how we ended up here today. Is I've gotten this great opportunity to be a part of all these different communities, and really am just motivated to share some work and yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, I've talked to quite a few people at this point about community seems to be a big one. Like where, and even for me, like I started the YouTube channel, I was kind of just doing it myself. And then it was like, as I've started reaching out to people, like not only have I found like there's such a wealth of people out there that are a part of the community, but everyone is like super nice and like everyone's willing to help and be a part and, offer their suggestions and all that. Like it's really, it's been very cool to jump into. And I think, especially because writing can be pretty lonely depending on, what you're working on or whatever. It's great to know that there's people out there who are rooting for you and you can share your work with and get feedback and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think that was one of the pieces I was missing. I said, like, 8 years ago, I was trying some similar stuff. That was kind of the piece I think I was missing at that time, because I was working directly with a publisher, and I just kind of I had a one-on-one dialogue with them, and that was kind of it. And that was kind of where the buck stopped. And to only have that one connection, and we didn't have like a Slack full of the other authors they worked with. We didn't have really any resources. And I didn't know where to go to find that, because I had just graduated college at the time. I didn't really know anything. Since then, I've learned you can just go to Twitter or Instagram or something, but I also wasn't on social media very much. So, but yeah, I think like that has been one of the biggest game changers this time. Is I went in with intention to, be of not just like inserting myself into these communities, but also like trying to provide some value. Like earlier today, I would just like scroll through threads, and people are asking. I've like curated that one very carefully to just be authors and readers. And there's on my feed just a whole bunch of people like asking questions like, how do you find editors, or how do you deal with ARCs? And just like, oh, I'll take like 15 minutes out of my day and just like quickly respond to a bunch of these and try to like help people out. And it 90% of the time doesn't really do anything for me, but it's about giving back into that space and not just trying to take from it.
Yeah, that's a great I think anyone who wants to be a part of a community, that's such a great perspective of like, obviously you want to join the community because it can help you and be beneficial to you, but then also
I'm not going to waste my time over here.
yeah, but like, how can you also provide value back to it? And that's the healthiest way to do that.
I can like point to a couple of people who have been extremely helpful to me. Like my editor for this book, BK Bass, he helped me edit it, obviously, but he also is a friend of mine who I met through World Building Magazine, who, if I just shoot him a message like, hey, what would you do about this? Or what do you think about this publishing, whatever? Like, he used to run a small press. And so he'll just like chat with me about that stuff just out of the kindness of his heart. And like that kind of relationship has been extremely helpful for me. And I'm just trying, I will not say that I am nearly as experienced as him, but I have at least learned a few things that I can point people toward. So
yeah, pretty. So I'm currently working on something. So I haven't actually published anything. But everyone that I've talked to so far that I've engaged with doing this has told me like, hey, let me know when you have something, and I'd love to help and read it. Like, it's just really encouraging to know that everyone is kind of pulling for each other. So
you have to. Especially in self-publishing, no one else is. So, make it a good space for yourselves.